Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very different episode of the Strategic Growth Podcast. We have changed a lot of things. Some will be obvious, some I'll have to explain to you. We moved our office, which means we moved our podcast studio, which means we have a new setup, new partners, and new things to talk about as we embrace change. And that's the conversation on the podcast today, embracing change as an opportunity to be successful.
The Golding Group Strategic Growth Podcast, formerly known as the Neo Marketing Podcast, offers real-world advice, expert analysis, and smart success strategies for entrepreneurs, investors, decision makers, and business leaders.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Strategic Growth Podcast. I am Kyle Golding, your host, flying solo today. My usual co-host and business partner, Pritch Pritchard, is spending some time with the family, well-deserved time off. He has earned it for sure. Today, I'm in the new podcast studio. Hopefully it sounds great. Hopefully when you're listening to the audio, it sounds exactly how you expect it to. It's going to look a little bit different on the video, on the YouTube channel, and on the social media, that's for sure. We have changed a lot of things, and so I want to talk to you today about embracing change, about the opportunity to grow, to be successful, to do all kinds of things that we find to be positive comes from embracing change. Not just changing when things happen to you, but actually actively making change. So I'm going to have that conversation with you. Then I will explain the new podcast studio in the new office, why we moved, etc. So let's talk off the top here. There's a concept that we work with a lot at the Golding Group, and I'm going to read this to you, and then I'm going to come back and break down each one of these sentences. It's only 5 sentences here, so follow along with me on the concept of change. Embracing change is an opportunity. Opportunity leads to potential success. Challenging yourself and your business means getting outside your comfort zone, personally and professionally, and then smart risk, not wild, not too safe, but risk with a desired outcome. That's idea number 5. So let's go right back to the top. Embracing change is an opportunity. Now, use the word embracing very specifically because often a lot of people think of change that is something that's forced upon you. And COVID-19 is a great example of all the changes we had to make in business and personal life, in society, etc., that was forced upon us. That wasn't something we chose to do or had the ability to not do. The current economic situation, supply chain issues, unemployment numbers, all kinds of things like this are things that are typically outside of our control in the business world and are changes pushed upon us. When you have a new competitor enter your market, when you have different regulations, different laws, different things change that will affect your business, tax code, all kinds of things can force change upon you, and how you adapt to that change, how you adapt to finding a different supplier if supply chain issue is the thing. If you had to stop doing business with certain countries because of tariffs, if you had to supplement or change the way you hire people and the way you retain employees because of low unemployment, the great resignation, all kinds of things, factors like that, remote work, etc., how you adapted to those situations that were forced upon you, how you dealt with the change, how you made changes in order to react to the reality. That was number 1. You want to make those changes so that you can continue doing what you're doing to continue to running the company in the way that's beneficial for you. But you also have an opportunity. And that's the second sentence. Opportunity leads to potential success. Change is an opportunity. And embracing change, the reason the word embracing is so important here, embracing change is, again, not just dealing with changes that are thrust upon you by outside factors, but actually creating change yourself. You know, there's a lot of people who like to adhere to the old adage that if it isn't broke, don't fix it. And I don't agree with that. If it's not broke, you could still make it better. Just because it's performing doesn't mean it's performing at peak. There may be something that is working well, that is profitable, that is beneficial, that has great ROI, that if you were to continue to make additional changes might make 2x or 10x or 20x or 100x that ROI. It might be even more productive, even more beneficial to your business. It also might create a byproduct or let you learn information or collect data that you weren't previously that will also be beneficial to your business. So embracing change challenging yourself to always change in good ways and beneficial ways, to move, to grow, to develop, to be better, to systemize. All these things are changes you can make on a regular basis to what you're already doing, even if it's successful, especially if it's successful, because you have an opportunity to take something successful, make it even more successful. So don't just react to the changes necessary because outside factors has caused something. You absolutely have to do that. And essentially, successful businesses are the ones who best adapt to the changes forced upon them. Best adaptation is going to win every time. The second best opportunity to win, the second biggest opportunity for you, is creating change that's beneficial because you have a continual mindset of development and growth and improvement. So embrace change, because change is an opportunity to get better, to grow, to expand, to do something different, and that different might be better, might be more beneficial, might be more profitable, might have a better return on investment, etc. So don't be afraid of change. When change is thrust upon you, it's often very stressful, but react in a way that this is an opportunity, the mindset of an opportunity, and then embrace it and engage it as an opportunity. Embracing change is an opportunity. That opportunity leads to success, potential success. Now, not every change creates an opportunity that's successful. A lot of changes don't work out. Some of them dead end, some of them become negative. But positive change is an opportunity within itself. That opportunity, the collection of the opportunity, the capitalization of the opportunities, the taking action on an opportunity, putting yourself in the best position, putting everything in place in order to capitalize on the opportunities that came about from change. It doesn't matter how change arrived to you, but capitalizing on the opportunities that come with it is how you create potential success. I said earlier, the best business is going to be the one who best handles change, because business is continual change. Things change on a regular basis. Things are always developing, adding to the factors change on a regular basis. It even changes from quarter to quarter, from season to season, from your primary to your secondary audiences. All these things can have major changes in them. Again, the competitive landscape, all kinds of things can be felt as change. How you deal with those changes, how you create opportunities, and you ultimately become successful. The people who deal with change the best are always the most successful. The most successful people always deal with change in the best ways. I think a great example right now, everyone's talking about Elon Musk. He has now officially purchased Twitter, and he is making changes. Day one, making changes. And whether you agree with these changes or not, we don't have time to get into that on the podcast today. But he did not buy Twitter, which has never been profitable, for billions of dollars in order to just run it how it was running. He had an idea that if he were in charge, the changes he would make it profitable. So he is embracing the idea as change as an opportunity. He is a change agent. He is a catalyst for this change in this case because he's the guy who bought it. It was publicly owned before. They had a board of directors. The more people involved in the decision-making process, usually the slower decision-making process. One individual making a lot of change. We'll have to see if it works out, if it's beneficial, if it's profitable for Twitter. But he took that opportunity, embraced it as an opportunity to purchase a business with equity, with brand equity, brand value. There's a reason he paid billions of dollars for it, but then make it better by changing things. But not wild changes, not random changes, very specific changes. He also got out of his comfort zone. How many times have you guys heard this? A million times. I'm not telling you anything new. That the best things happen outside your comfort zone. It's easy to think of personally setting goals for yourself, or trying to add skills to yourself, or do things that are different than they were before, or ways you get yourself out of your comfort zone. If you're shy, you go talk to people. If you are aggressive, you temper that down with balance. If you have certain personality traits that are holding you back, you address them specifically. Get yourself outside your comfort zone. If you're out of shape, you get to the gym. That first day at the gym is very uncomfortable, but you can't get into shape. You can't be successful at the gym until you get outside the comfort zone. It's the same way in business. Your business, as an organization, as a group of decision makers, as a team, you can get outside your comfort zone, not on a regular basis, though. Let me explain this exactly. personally and professionally, get outside your comfort zone. For a business, we call it the 80-20 rule. 80% of what works, 20% experimentation, right? That experimentation often informs you and teaches you information about your audience, your competition, your market, etc. That's why we do the experimentation. A lot of it fails, most of it fails. Even the failures teach us things, inform us about what's happening that we're competing against and how our 80% could be even better. Occasionally, that 20% experimentation works so well, it replaces something in the 80% that we always do with something new from the experimentation. That's how it's supposed to work. That's how you push a business outside your comfort zone. You experiment in small doses, in 20% versus 80%. You don't put the whole company on the line to make a radical change, to pivot on a dime, to do things quickly that are massive in scale or losing equity, etc. But you do need to 20% of the time experiment, get outside your comfort zone, do things differently just to see how it goes, just to learn from the experiment itself and understand, because it's a minority of your budget, of your time, of your effort, of your attention, that it can and probably will lose, but there's still valuable information from it. Use it as a learning tool, as an opportunity to learn what doesn't work. Sometimes you learn things that do work unexpectedly, and then you can change that 80% of what you consider always working and putting in something regular that you were doing experimental before. So businesses can be pushed out of their comfort zone in the right way. Don't just randomly do stuff to do stuff with your business. There's too much at stake, and there's too much that you've built. It takes a slow time to build a brand, to build a reputation, to build your audience, to build your customer base, to build your reputation, to build your customer service, to build the relationships with your vendors, with your subcontractors, with your customers, with your clients, with your audience, with your supporters, with your collaborators. All that comes from slow build. So don't quickly go out and cut the knees out from underneath that, but do experiment occasionally, 20% of the time, in order to stay out of the comfort zone. If you are 100% of the time in the comfort zone, you'll wake up one day and realize your competitors, the market, the audience, etc., has passed you by, and they're all doing something different because they have been continually experimenting. So get outside your comfort zone personally and professionally, and that's how you embrace change. And then you take smart risk. Again, not wild risk, not random, and not staying too safe. Not staying too safe, staying in your comfort zone is taking a risk because you're missing the value of experimentation. So it's risky to stay 100% doing what you've always done. It's risky to do random, wild things for no reason, with no logic, no strategy, no thought process. Instead, put strategy into it, put thought process into it. Your experimentations should still be akin to that 80% that you are doing on a regular basis that you know works, that you feel confident about. It doesn't have to be radically different to be an experimentation. But if you're going to do anything radically different, if you're going to do something random, make sure it is the smallest bit of your budget, of your time, your energy, your money, your effort, your attention, all of that, your team, your budget team, time, energy, attention, money. Make sure that is a minority of the wild, risky experimentation you do. You do have to take risk. Risk is part of the game. Much as dealing with change is part of running a business, dealing with risk, taking risk is part of that too. You cannot be rewarded if you don't take risk, but take smart risk, take calculated risk, do things that make sense to the core of who you are and what you do as an organization, who your team is, your value proposition, who your audience is, etc. Make sure all of this risk in your experimentation still comes back to a core place of what you're trying to build, the brand, the audience, your position, all of those things, your differentiation, your value proposition, all of that still needs to feed into that. If you find something experimental that works, you take a big risk and it works, but you don't know how to connect it, you don't know how to relate it, you don't know how it worked, or you don't know how to capitalize on it. Great, it worked. Now what? So take risks that are associated with what you're already doing, get outside that comfort zone, 80-20 experimentation, embrace change as an opportunity, as an attitude, and all of this along with doing your everything correctly, your best practices, running your business properly, making sure you're paying attention to your systems, your processes, your rules, everything that's in place, your structure, your people, your communication, your two-way communication, the supply chain, the command chain, all of this information, the feedback loop, every bit of that, if that's working, and you're 80-20 experimenting, and you're embracing change because you're paying attention to and making the change necessary because it's being forced by the outside world, and You're making changes internally because you're experimenting and you're doing 80-20, and you're continually growing, continually developing, never sitting back, never being lazy or soft or too comfortable, getting outside your comfort zone, even if it means pushing your current success to even greater heights of success. More, pushing for more is getting yourself outside your comfort zone. Even if you don't achieve more, even if you achieve the same, you learn things, you find ways that can work and won't, and there's always information that comes from that. That's getting outside your comfort zone. That's embracing change as the opportunity for success it is. I hope that was beneficial for you guys as well. We obviously are embracing change ourselves. So like I said earlier, we have moved the office. We've moved the podcast studio. This is the first show in the podcast studio. I ran out of time. I had to get this done before Pritch got off vacation, but we'll see him next time. But the podcast itself is also going to be changed. So let's talk about that a little bit. Recently, we told you that we were going to add some things to the podcast. We're now very much looking forward to adding those elements. More interviews with people besides Pritch and I. You've heard Pritch and I talk to each other for over 150 episodes. We're going to talk to more guests, do more guest interviews, more communication with people outside the Golden Group itself in order to bring you guys different perspectives. We'll definitely be looking for business leaders, thought leaders, etc. in Oklahoma and Texas and some of the markets that we operate in. This is not an open call. Don't tell everyone you know to hit us up to be on the podcast unless they want to do the second part. The second part is I recently expressed this on the podcast, and now I'm going to come back and triple down on it. We want to do what we're calling business plan triage on the podcast. Would like to have a guest on the podcast who has a problem in their business, something they need help with. It's a situation, a scenario, something in their business plan, their business model they can't figure out. There's a hole, there's a gap, there's a hump they can't get over. If they'll sit down, talk with us on the podcast and help us, let us help them with some ideas, some strategies, some things to put in place in order to address their problem. Thus, they learn a way around their problem, and you learn from it too while listening to the podcast. And it's beneficial to all of us. So business plan triage, as you're going to see a lot more of that, hear a lot more of that on the Strategic Growth Podcast as we move forward. A lot more interviews with business leaders, business owners, decision makers, thought leaders, etc. And again, interesting topics, interesting people who bring value to us as the people interviewing them and value to you as the listener as well. So more of that as well. More focus on strategy, process, and how-tos. More applying to you how to get these things done. There's a lot of concept. Today, there was a lot of conceptual talk about how to embrace change, but the 80-20 rule and other things as far as experimentation that you can implement. So we're going to make sure that we focus on implementation as much as we focus on concept of things like strategy and business process management. We're going to focus on those things because that's what we do at the Golden Group. And that's why this is called the Strategic Growth Podcast. All of that, the changes to the podcast, to the format, the things that we're adding, the things that we're going to focus on moving forward in 2023 come from you telling us, making comments wherever you listen to the podcast, whether it's on iTunes, Google Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podchaser, however you listen to the podcast, watching the videos on YouTube as well, and the comments that you're seeing, that we're seeing in social media, the interactions we're having with you, the emails we get, the phone calls we get, etc. Even in our personal communications, when people are saying, "Hey, I listened to the podcast, and you brought up this point. Can you go a little deeper in this topic? Can you talk about this further?" All of this is based on feedback from you guys. So make sure you hit us up. Feedback as much as possible. Hit us up on social media. Hit us up on the podcast platforms. Send us an email. You can find us at thegoldengroup.com. Hit that contact button. Send us an email. Tell us what you want to hear on the podcast, what you like, topics you like us to cover. If it's too theoretical or if it's too tactical, let us know what you think about that. More changes, more updates are planned in the future. This podcast set is probably going to get juiced up just a little bit, a little flair, a little style in the future. This is our first episode here, so hopefully we'll make it our home relatively soon. Our office has been moved to downtown Oklahoma City. We're actually working out of the building that is the Better Business Bureau. Our friends, our clients, our longtime collaborators, the Business Bureau serving Central Oklahoma, they have been longtime clients of ours. We've known the CEO and some of their leadership team for quite a long time, and they had an opportunity to allow us to utilize their space, office spaces, and this podcast studio that they were underutilizing. It was advantageous for them and for us. We'll definitely be having conversation with the leadership team, especially the CEO and president, Kit Letcher from the BBB of Central Oklahoma, very soon. Maybe one of my first interviews in this new format. So be looking for all of those things in 2023. Pritch will be back to have conversations with me when we're not interviewing guests. And definitely, if you have a problem with your business, if you have a struggle, if there's something that we can triage for you in your business plan, your business model, or tactical execution otherwise, hit us up, come on the podcast, we'll have that conversation, and we will learn from each other, help each other, and benefit each other. Sounds like a good idea to me, right? So, new office, new studio, new format for the podcast, all new heading into 2023. Here we are in the November 2nd. It's the next to last month, fourth quarter. The 2022 is wrapping up. Holidays are coming soon. 2023 will be launching, and the changes that we've discussed today will be part of this podcast moving forward. So appreciate you guys tuning in each and every episode. Look for a new episode in 2 weeks. And last thing before I go, the next time that we come on this podcast, it will be just a couple days past our 11th anniversary. November 11th, 2011, a lot of 11s there, was when we launched the Golden Group. And now it's 2022. It's 11 years later. 11/11 is going to again be our 11th anniversary. A lot of 11s there. So we will definitely be talking about that on the next episode in 2 weeks of the Strategic Growth Podcast. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Hit us up with input, with feedback. Leave a comment, leave a review. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. Tell a friend, follow on social media, and make suggestions as to what you would like to hear on future episodes of the Strategic Growth Podcast. Good luck to you guys. Go out there and embrace change.
Thanks for listening to the Golden Group Strategic Growth Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Tell a friend, leave a review, and engage with us on social media. To contact us, please visit thegoldengroup.com.